Imagine for a moment that you are holding your most precious possession. It could be a porcelain vase passed down from your grandmother, or perhaps a delicate teacup you bought on a special trip. Now imagine it slipping from your fingers. The crash, the sharp intake of breath, the heartbreak of seeing something perfect shatter into a dozen useless, jagged pieces. For most of us, this is where the story ends. The object is broken, ruined, destined for the trash. We hide our mistakes, we throw away what is damaged. We constantly seek the new, the shiny, and the flawless. But what if I told you that in the ancient heart of Japan, this moment of destruction is not an end, but a beginning? What if the cracks were not flaws to be hidden, but history to be celebrated? There is a profound philosophy that suggests a broken bowl, mended with gold, is actually more beautiful because it has been broken. It invites us to look at the rust on an old gate, the moss on a stone wall, and the wrinkles on a smiling face, and see something divine. Welcome to a world where nothing lasts, nothing is finished, and imperfection is the only true state of being. Welcome to Culture Journey, where we travel not just across maps, but into the soul of humanity. I am your guide, and today we are stepping onto the quiet, cobblestone paths of Japan to explore a concept that is arguably the most difficult to translate, yet the most essential to the Japanese aesthetic. It is called Wabi-Sabi. You may have heard this term used in design magazines to describe a rustic table or a concrete wall. But to reduce Wabi-Sabi to merely a style is to miss its soul entirely. This is not a trend. It is a worldview, a deep spiritual exhale that has permeated Japanese culture for centuries. It originated from the austere practices of Zen Buddhism and the tea ceremony, evolving into a way of life that embraces the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. But why does this ancient wisdom matter to us, here and now? In a modern era obsessed with filters, Photoshop, and the relentless pursuit of perfection, Wabi-Sabi offers us a sanctuary. It grants us permission to relax. It teaches us that there is a staggering, quiet beauty in things that are modest and humble. Today, we are going to peel back the layers of this philosophy to understand how the Japanese find deep peace in the very things the rest of the world tries to fix. To truly understand Wabi-Sabi, we must first separate the words, for they were not always joined together. Wabi originally referred to the loneliness of living in nature, remote from society. It began as a cold, desolate word, but over time, poets and monks transformed it into something positive, the appreciation of a life of quiet rusticity. It became the feeling of being sufficient with very little. Think of a hermit's hut deep in the mountains, simple, unadorned, yet filled with spiritual richness. Sabi, on the other hand, relates to the passage of time. It is the beauty of age. It is the tarnish on a silver spoon, the graying of weathered wood, or the peeling paint on an old bench. It is the physical evidence that life has been lived. When you combine them, you get a profound appreciation for the reality of life, that we are born, we age, and we fade, and there is a melancholic beauty in that cycle. Let me ask you a question. When you look at a blooming flower, is it most beautiful when it is perfectly open? Or is there a different, perhaps deeper kind of beauty in the moment the petals surrender and fall to the ground? Wabi-Sabi would argue for the latter. It treasures the evidence of time passing. There is a famous legend that perfectly encapsulates this spirit. It involves the great 16th century tea master, Senno Rikyū. As the story goes, Rikyū was sweeping a garden path filled with leaves. He scrubbed the mossy stones until they were spotless. He raked the ground until it was immaculate. By every standard definition, it was flawless. But Rikyū was not satisfied. He walked over to a maple tree and shook a branch, allowing a few random withered leaves to flutter down onto the perfectly raked gravel. Only then was the garden complete. That single act, the intentional disruption of perfection, is the essence of Wabi-Sabi. It acknowledges that nature is random and asymmetrical. A garden that is too perfect feels artificial. It holds attention, a silent anxiety. A garden with a few fallen leaves feels alive. This philosophy revolutionized the Japanese tea ceremony, or sado. Before this, tea was consumed in ornate, colorful Chinese porcelain that shouted wealth and status. The Wabi-Sabi masters replaced these with rough, hand-molded bowls. These bowls were often uneven, dark, and textured. If you hold one, you can feel the thumbprint of the potter. You can feel the accident of the fire in the kiln. I am curious, if you were a guest in that tea house, which cup would you choose? The perfect, machine-made cylinder that looks like 1,000 others? Or the slightly lopsided rough clay cup that fits perfectly into the palm of your hand, telling a story that is unique to that single object? Perhaps the most visual and famous representation of Wabi-Sabi is the art form known as Kintsugi, which translates to golden joinery. This brings us back to our broken bowl from the beginning of our journey. In the 15th century, a Japanese shogun sent a damaged tea bowl back to China for repairs. It returned held together with ugly metal staples. The Japanese craftsmen were horrified. They knew there had to be a better way to honor the object. They decided to mend the cracks with a lacquer resin mixed with powdered gold. Instead of concealing the damage, they illuminated it. The cracks became the most valuable part of the piece. The bowl became more beautiful because it had been broken. Think about how radical this is. In our personal lives, we often try to hide our emotional scars. We hide our failures. We want to present a flawless image to the world. But Kintsugi teaches us that our scars, whether physical or emotional, are proof that we have survived. They are what make us unique. They are the golden seams running through the tapestry of our lives. Did you know that in the history of Japanese antiques, some collectors would deliberately smash valuable pottery just so they could have it repaired with kintsugi? That is how highly they valued the aesthetic of the broken and mended. It seems crazy to the modern mind, doesn't it? But it shows a deep desire to transform tragedy into triumph. You might be wondering, does this ancient philosophy still exist in high-tech, neon-lit modern Japan? The answer is a resounding yes, though it exists in a delicate balance. You see it in the architecture of Tadao Ando, who uses raw concrete that allows light and shadow to play across the surface. You see it in the Japanese love for the changing seasons. There is a concept called mono no aware, the pathos of things, which is deeply connected to Wabi-Sabi. It is why the entire nation stops to watch the cherry blossoms in spring. The blossoms are beautiful not just because they are pink, but because they only last for a week. If they bloomed forever, no one would care. Their impermanence creates their value. However, living by Wabi-Sabi is becoming harder. We live in a consumer culture that tells us if something is old, replace it. If something is scratched, discard it. We are constantly sold the illusion of perfection. Perfect skin, perfect bodies, perfect homes, perfect careers. In this noise, embracing Wabi-Sabi becomes a quiet act of rebellion. It is a choice to slow down. It is a choice to buy a wooden table and welcome the scratches that will come from family dinners over the years. It is a choice to find peace in the asymmetry of life. Here is something to consider. Look around the room you are sitting in right now. Find one object that is old, worn, or imperfect. Maybe it is a book with a creased spine or a mug with a chipped rim. Instead of seeing it as shabby, try to look at it through the lens of Wabi-Sabi. Can you see the dignity in it? Can you see the time stored within it? To truly practice this mindset, we can look at the 7 Zen principles often associated with Wabi-Sabi. I will not list them like a textbook, but let's touch on a few that you can apply to your life tomorrow. First is fukinsei, asymmetry. Nature is rarely symmetrical. If you are decorating your home or even plating food, don't make it perfectly even. Leave room for the eye to wander. Second is kanso, simplicity. This is about eliminating the clutter. It is not just about minimalism, it is about removing what doesn't matter so that what does matter can stand out. And finally, seijaku, tranquility. This is the cultivation of stillness. In our noisy world, silence is a luxury. But in the world of Wabi-Sabi, silence is a necessary ingredient for beauty. You cannot appreciate the sound of the wind in the pines if you are constantly surrounded by noise. What about you? Do you find it difficult to sit in silence? In our fast-paced culture, silence often feels awkward or empty. But Wabi-Sabi invites us to see silence not as empty, but as full of possibility. As our journey comes to a close, we leave the tea house and step back out into the busy world. But hopefully we carry a piece of that quiet garden with us. Wabi-Sabi is more than just an aesthetic for pottery or architecture. It is a gentle compassion for ourselves. It reminds us that we do not need to be perfect to be valuable. It whispers that life is a cycle of blooming and fading, and that every stage of that cycle has its own specific, aching beauty. It teaches us to tread lightly on this earth, to cherish the things that are weathered and worn, and to understand that nothing is ever truly broken. It is just in the process of becoming something new. In a world that demands we run faster and shine brighter, Wabi-Sabi whispers a different truth. You are enough, just as you are. Cracked, worn, imperfect, and beautiful. Each culture acts as a mirror, reflecting the human soul, and perhaps looking into the mirror of Japan helps us accept our own reflections a little more kindly. The journey of understanding ourselves never truly ends, does it? If this journey into the heart of Wabi-Sabi resonated with you, or if it made you look at a broken object in your home differently, please give this video a like. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you have an object that is imperfect but precious to you? Tell me its story. Don't forget to subscribe to Culture Journey and hit the notification bell. We have so many more beautiful, hidden corners of the world to explore together. Until next time, travel with an open heart.